Oh no, I can't hear you. Oh, there you go.
Oh, you know what? That's funny. So I basically started the whole intro with myself muted. Thank you for letting me know. Let's go. Let's go ahead and restart that. How does that sound? If you didn't come in here, I would have been muted for who knows how long. That would have been great. But yeah,
That's why I'm
we're here. Let's start this
here.
up. All right. Well, welcome back to 7 Day Worship. My name is Casey Klosek, your host, and I have been a worship pastor for about 20 years and a Christian entrepreneur for a few as well. And it's been really fun hanging out with Chris. Chris may not be able to be here tonight, our co host, because he has some stuff going on that he has to get to. He might pop in, he might not, but you'll see me basically just hosting tonight. And Edward Wiggins is with us and just decided to come on last minute here. So thank you so much for taking some time to come on, Ed. And let's go ahead and just let you do a quick intro. It's been a while since you've been on. You want to give people a little
Yeah,
insight who you are, what you do.
sure. So my name's Edward Wiggins. My friends call me Eddie, and I do worship at my church. I'm also a independent Christian artist as well, and I've been doing. And I'm a poet. I do a lot of things. Producer as well. I've been doing music professionally since I was maybe out of college, but I've been doing music for years, and I've been loving God since I was 5. So that's who I am.
Love it. Love it. Well, tonight, what we're going to be talking about is this topic, this wonderful topic, where we're going to explore how to approach God. And what I'm excited about with this is this ability for us to just dive in and share some stories about maybe how we've experienced that, but then just kind of dig around the topic itself, because there's an Old Testament view on how people go through this, and then there's more of this New Testament, the veil being torn type of idea of what it is being able to approach God. And that's something that I think we go all the way back to Genesis in. We're definitely going to get there in Revelation. But just to kind of start this out, what I'm going to do before us getting into the topic, I'd like us to understand the new format that we're doing with 7 Day Worship. The idea is we've been doing 2 hours for a while. Chris and I kind of had a show last week where we were mostly just assessing after the last 6 months of doing this, which is nuts to say. 6 months of consistently every single week doing this, we found some things that we looked back on and said, hey, this isn't quite what we wanted it to be. And for some things we wanted it to turn out to be, weren't quite hitting as hard as we wanted to. And so my wife and I, we had talked off the air, and then I had come in with Chris because we're also in a busy season. She can't come on as much in this moment. And so we just talked about how can we make this more accessible. And so we're going to go from 2 hours to just a 1 hour format. So tonight, just going to be 7 to 8 Central Time. And we're still going to do the roundtable type of dialogue. So if anybody wants to jump on, they can feel free to. We're going to try to have some concentrated guests in here to take up that hour as well. And so if you guys know anybody that you think would be fun to have on here about a specific topic, just point them our way, because we would love to talk to them, just hang out for that hour, get to know who they are, and just talk out and geek out about a topic with them over the Bible. So that's what we're going to do. Try to be a little more potent with it and directed. But yeah, really, really looking forward to that. Ed, it's kind of your first time hearing that. What do you think of the format? And yeah, like, what have you liked about the old format you wanted to keep, and maybe some of the things you're looking forward to for the new?
Well, as far as things that I liked from the old format, first of all, I appreciate having the different perspectives from people that are doing what I want to do, people that have. I remember we had a gentleman on, I can't remember his name, but he was talking about how his daughter went to Korea, and he's like, oh man, I got contacts and this is that, like, and he had to trust God. So hearing that story, like a real life story of somebody stepping out and trusting God with his most prized thing, and that's his child, and hearing even God speaking to him, I think that was awesome. So having real life examples of people that are doing what we're doing, both spiritually and naturally. As far as the new format goes, I like the shorter time because sometimes I can't give all of my time, because I usually only have like 1 month, one Monday a month to really come on. So the shorter time is good, and it's not too late. And then also just kind of like sharing stories and being more encouraging and whatnot about our own experience with God. I like that too, because it kind of lightens the load, because on here, especially as worship leaders and people in our own world, we tend to get pretty heavy on some of these topics. So it's good to come back and be encouraged on some things as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's what we're trying to basically keep is this idea of let's still keep the diverse, opinion. Let's just try to make this more a joy spot for people who come in, and for people who are going to listen to it in the future. If this could be something where there's just so much debate going on online these days. There's so
Yeah.
much. Let's tear each other down. And don't get me wrong, there needs to be things pointed out, and there is some negative stuff going on, especially in the church. But the dream of this was more to build up rather than to tear down and do the debating and all that other kind of stuff. And so, if we can do that, I think we're still trying to figure out how that works because diverse opinions are good, and we want that. Debating culture, probably not. Um, Also, like reading off a prompt, like here's question, response. You could do that in a life group. So more dynamic conversations where people are just jumping in. They've thought about it ahead of time. They've prepared to talk about stuff, and we just geek out and get excited about how we're going to implement. I think for the week to come, and maybe pump each other up for doing the work rather than just
Yeah.
hearing, and just talking about it. So that's kind of the idea. But and so as we go into it, I mean, like that's the mentality that I'm hoping that we find with this moving forward. So yeah, let's go ahead and what I'm going to do is just share my screen because I've got some stuff for us to look at with slides. It's actually the first time I'm doing it this way, and I'm doing everything on my own. So just let me know if you're having any issues. So we've
Okay.
got should be the first slide, and it's not. So let's go back. There we go. So tonight, how to approach God. So this concept of and this question starting it, is the door really open? What would you change if you believed the door was actually open? And the question is really done this way because it's this idea of what is the way that we're supposed to think of this approachfulness of God? Are we supposed to prepare kind of like they did in the tabernacle day? Are we supposed to go through all the different steps? Is there requirement? Um, why was there if there's not any more? And what does the Old Testament have to say about this? What does the New Testament have to say about this? And so when we're asking that question, is the door really open? I'm going to phrase it that way because we're going to look at Ecclesiastes first. And it might feel like the door's not quite as open as what we've been told. Then we're going to jump into the New Testament and see why we've been told what we've been told in the church about the door. And so I guess the framing here is for people who might look at this and say, yeah, I talk to God all the time and it sounds like there's just nobody home. I think
Mm.
that's where we really start with this question is that door really open or is it just something I've always heard at church? And so as I start that out with you, Ed, have you ever kind of felt that before? Have you ever heard anything like that before where it's, assumed that the door is open, but you haven't really felt that?
Um, I've heard that the door is open, and I've and particularly at my church, we experience, like in praise and worship, we are encouraged to, the congregation is encouraged to, hey, lay out before the feet of Jesus this that and the other. So I don't think I've experienced in like when I'm personally worshiping, I don't think
Hmm.
I've experienced where it felt like the door was closed. Um, but I do know that sometimes as a worship leader, like given all the background about how the tabernacle was set up and how he wanted the sacrifices a certain way and da 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 da. Sometimes as a leader, it can feel like the door is not as open and there
Hmm.
are hoops that you have to jump through to get to that door, if that makes any sense.
As a leader, so dive into that a little bit. What do you mean by as a leader it feels?
I know. So as a leader, a lot of times we're taught that we have to, like enjoy worship. However, you have to make sure you're not making it too much about you. But you also have to stay in control because you have to pay attention, which some of those things I agree with. But you also have to make sure that, we're doing particular songs because we don't want to just talk about me songs and like there's a lot of different rules behind the songs we pick, behind when to do those songs. And while I think that some of it is appropriate, I also think that some of it too is kind of restricting because it sometimes feels a little legalistic when it comes down to what songs we pick and things of that nature. So and it's up to the leader to be mature enough to, or it's portrayed as it's up to the leader to be mature enough to know how to approach God the correct way.
Sure, sure. Yes, and you're talking specifically as a worship leader, and I think that right as a worship leader because that's like the
Yeah.
that you're feeling there. Yeah. Um, so I think that would be the same for any of that leadership role where it's. I was just going today. I did my devotion and I ran across. I went through Ecclesiastes kind of prep for tonight a little bit as well. And as I was reading it, you know what? I'm just going to pull it up because I have it in here. Um,
Okay.
Ecclesiastes 5:2 is kind of where we're going to focus on, but I'm going to go to the entire first passage here and just get the feel of the land here for a second and how it kind of slaps you in the face because this whole theme is approaching God with care. Okay. And I would just say in other translations, this little header that people put up there would be something like how to approach God, and it's specifically in the temple. And so Solomon's writing this, and he's going through and saying, as you enter the house of God, this temple, keep your ears open and your mouth shut. It is evil to make mindless offerings to God. Don't make rash promises, and don't be hasty to bring matters before God. After all, God is in heaven, and you are here on earth. So let your words be few. Too much activity gives you restless dreams, and too many words make you a fool. When you make a promise to God, don't delay in the follow through, for God takes no pleasure in fools. Keep all the promises you make to Him. It is better to say nothing than make a promise and not keep it. Don't let your mouth make you sin, and don't defend yourself by telling the temple messenger that the promise you made was a mistake. That would make God angry, and He might wipe out everything you have achieved.
Wow.
Talk is cheap, like daydreams and other useless activities. Fear God instead. Now, what do you think of that when I read that passage?
Wow.
I mean, it's like, I mean, that's what I read this
um
morning, and I was like, whoa, I'm like highlighting things everywhere. But yeah, what are your thoughts when we start going through that?
wow. So it kind of looks like this this is for every believer. The what's the word? Like not sincerity. There's a word I'm looking for, but this attention to know who you are approaching. Be mindful, like you don't just
Hmm.
show up. Be intentional. That's the word.
There we go.
Be
Yep.
intentional about coming before God,
Mm.
especially when you are, like you said, approaching the temple. Be intentional. Don't just show up and, oh, I'm just gonna do that. Like, I'm not gonna say have a plan, but I am going to say, okay, when you it's like when you're going into prayer, like you're going into prayer, hey, Lord, you are good, da 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 da. Now I'm listening to what you have to say, and I want to know, like the thing we talk about a lot is prayer is a two-way conversation,
Yeah.
and you have to speak and then wait for a reply. You shouldn't be the only one speaking.
Hmm.
So just being intentional about when you with anything that you approach God with, but since we're talking about worship, particularly during that time of worship.
Yeah. Yeah. So we can we can talk about the new. So I think there's this idea of, and I think this Ecclesiastes one is showing us something really important, and it says it there. When, don't you know that you're here on earth and God is up in heaven? And there's this concept of there's distance between you. You know, you guys are not on the same plane. You guys don't exist together. And we know, thankfully so, that that is just not the case anymore for a believer.
Mm,
Um, and so Ecclesiastes, when he's talking about this with all of his wisdom, he's saying, "Man, be respectful. Who are you talking to? Know who
yeah.
you're talking to." I was talking about this with my wife a little earlier, Autumn, and I was saying, you know, one of the things that makes me feel like a fool a lot. I talk to a lot of high level executives in different places now, and what makes me feel like a fool is I am a chatterbox, and I talk a lot. I'll monologue because I verbally process. And something I've
Mm,
noticed with high level executives that they have learned a very good skill, which is that they will maximize their words with as few as possible and make their point
yeah.
and shut up and they'll listen. And it's like, I'm talking to God, like sea level, God, you know, of like who I'm talking to. And what is making me think that my approach to God shouldn't be thought through out of respect for who He is, that I can just come and just let go of everything and unleash. And at the same time, it's kind of what He's asking for in the New Testament.
Mm,
And so there's this weird kind of juxtaposition a little bit where it's, and paradox, I guess, where it's respect God and come prepared. Don't over talk. You sound like a fool. God doesn't tolerate fools. And so, like, what's that about? You know, like, what's he trying to say there? Because this is Solomon.
yeah.
He has God's wisdom. God gave it to him, and he's telling you how to approach him. But at the same time, like in the New Testament, we seem to get a totally different picture. Let me just ask you this outright: what are some of the pictures that you've heard of, or you've seen, and you've had framed to you of this is how you should approach God? Like, what are some of the things that in today you just think of when you say, "Hey, I have a relationship with God. This is how that works."
Um, as far as today, the main one of the big ones we've been talking about at church is Father, and the like what is it? The series our pastor's talking about is Abba, and it's like a close, intimate relationship, and there's like a level of like with that there's like a level of oh man, I can let my hair down type of I can let my hair down. I can let my hair down type of deal, you know what I'm saying? And like, oh yeah, he be open with them because he already knows what you're dealing with, and you can, like that kind of deal. But then sometimes I also get, well, he's God and he has his throne. This is the creator of heaven and earth. And you can't just talk to him any old kind of way. And you can't just approach him crazy. You know what I'm saying? But then honestly, Casey, too, like on Instagram, I hear people talk about how, excuse me one moment. Hold on a second.
Oh, you're good. And while you're doing that, I'm going to start looking up this Hebrews passage because it actually goes directly what I would say in competition or in the almost opposite way of what Ecclesiastes is doing in some ways. But yeah, I'll let you continue your thought. But then I'm going to get into Hebrews 4 and talk about how he talks about drawing near with confidence.
Yeah. But like even with like I've heard people say that God calls them by like nicknames, or I've heard people say God tells jokes when he's talking to them, like and like he's serious, like what he's trying to convey a serious point, but he'll tell jokes with them, and so it's like, okay, like you kind of get confused about which, because they're all presented as God. You know what I'm saying? And it's scripture as far as like what this voice is telling them as he's telling them jokes. And so it's like, okay, like which one is which? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I think that what I'm going to get into in a second here, as I go into this Hebrews passage and finish that out, I'm going to bring it back to Ecclesiastes and hopefully get some uh, some helpful ability to say, hey, it's not about a choice here. It's not about one being wrong. It's about them fulfilling a greater purpose. And so in Hebrews 4, just for context, I mean, we're hearing a lot of people think this is Luke who's writing this. There's other thoughts of different writers in it, but the idea is uh, there's an encouragement here in Hebrews chapter 4 where it's talking about rest and this abiding and this ability to tremble with fear that some of you might fail to experience it, right? Like there's good news here. There's good news that God has given us that people have not been given previously. And we have it. This promise of entering rest still stands. And so as we get down and he goes through that promise for a lot, and he talks about Joshua, which is great, right? Joshua succeeded in giving rest, and he goes through some of this Old Testament stuff. He gets down into this Christ is our high priest. And that's really important because we see something very new happen here where after the veil was torn and Jesus starts talking about us and our bodies and who we are, and Paul starts talking about this a lot as well. Don't you know that you're the temple? 1 Corinthians 3. Don't you know the Holy Spirit dwells inside of you? So Christ becoming this high priest, it's really interesting of what he's setting up here. And here he goes in verse 14 and on saying, so then since we have a great high priest in Christ who has entered heaven, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold firm to what we believe. This high priest of ours understands our weaknesses, for he faced all of the same testings we do, yet he did not sin. So let us come boldly to the throne of our gracious God. There we will receive his mercy, and we will find grace to help us when we need it most. And so the approach. So we hear kind of back here in Ecclesiastes, as you enter the house of God, keep your ears open and your mouth shut. This is Ecclesiastes. Then you go into Hebrews. So let us come boldly to the throne of our gracious God. Now, I don't think that they disconnect from each other whatsoever. I think we see Solomon saying, guard your steps and watch your words, right? God is in heaven, you're on earth, so come careful, not careless, into his presence. And then centuries later, as we see that exact moment where Jesus gave up his spirit on the cross in Matthew 27, we see the temple being torn apart. See this place that Solomon's talking about being ripped apart, torn in two. It says the rocks are being torn in two here, just like Jesus predicted. And Jesus told them one thing, right? When they asked about the temple, he said, hey, it's going to be torn down and it will be rebuilt in 3 days. He's talking about his body, right? And so we see it being torn down when Jesus is on that cross in Matthew 27, 50 through 51. And then we see that that curtain exists to keep ordinary people out of God's presence, and Jesus opened the way where the way had currently or previously been shut. Then we jump into Hebrews 4, 14 through 16, where it tells us that it tells us exactly what we are to do with that opening, that we're to draw near with confidence because Jesus is there, sitting right there with God, and he knows everything about us. He knows all of us. And so we now, because he knows everything about us, and because he's lived as we have, and he's sitting on the right hand of God, we can now come boldly into the presence of God. What's so cool is it's not this permission, like you don't have to choose between this reverence idea of come with your ears open and your mouth shut. You don't have to come with that reverence alone and choose between that and confidence, right? It's not like, oh, I'm going to come timid or I'm going to come bold. But instead, Ecclesiastes says, come careful. And Jesus makes it possible to actually come close to God. So we don't have to go through a high priest somewhere. He is the high priest. And so holding both at this point, it's not permission to be casual with God, but confidence that the door was never actually locked on us. And I think that's what's really exciting about this, is that, and I don't know if you've heard like the Jesus is my bro kind of stuff. What are your thoughts on like that? And not to be weird, I'm not like cringing on that or anything.
Yeah,
I'm sure you've heard that before. What are your
I
thoughts on that?
have.
I'm not going to say it's a
I
bad thing.
So here's the thing. Again, there has to be there. You have access to that personal relationship. You know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't quite phrase it that way because it feels a little disrespectful. But I mean, even that could be because of how I came up, but still, like, I think the sentiment is correct. Jesus is my brother, so I should be able to come to him about anything and everything. I shouldn't be like I have a little sister and a little brother, and my sister shouldn't be afraid to come talk to me.
Right.
Now, there's a certain level of respect she should treat me with, but and even that's a little odd for me to like say, oh yeah, Taylor, you have to, yeah, it's weird. That's weird. But but there's a certain mindfulness that she has that I am the oldest.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain mindfulness that Ryan has that I am the oldest. Now, he definitely is not like, oh yeah, Eddie, that's not even, praise God. That's not how it is. But he definitely respects my position as the oldest. He does. And so in the same way, while I don't disagree with the sentiment, I do think that there is I do think that there is a level of reverence you have to come. I don't think that you should cross that line. Here's what I'll say. To the extent that your relationship with him is, even though there's general ways that you approach God, to the extent that your relationship that you have with him is, that's how you should show that kind of reverence.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like there are people that they have a relationship. I'll use my pastor for an example. There are people that have a certain relationship with pastor. And like we just had our conference and he had his friends come in to and they're pastors and stuff, but they're close. And so, you know, when they're doing their thing and they're on the pulpit and they're preaching and they're cracking jokes, Rodney, but when they are operating around us, his congregation, they know how to, okay, he's Pastor Pearson. I mean, he's Rodney, but he's pastor. You know what I'm saying? So they know how to adjust when necessary. But then, if you catch him walking by or they're talking to each other, they're cracking jokes again. So it's like what they have that relationship with him. They show him the reverence that's due his position, that's due the man of God that he is personally, but they also demonstrate that closeness with him as well. Like they're not all like stuffy when they're just hanging out or whatever. Like you can see even from the pulpit, you can see that they have a personal relationship and they talk like it.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
Yeah. I think in the same way, it's the same with God. Like if you're just minding your business, you know what, God, you pretty dope. Like, oh, you said God is dope. No, like he's cool. Like he's dope. Like he's awesome, But then in other area, like when you're in a certain level of like worshiping and you're in like there's times in worship where you are hit with this revelation of exactly who this deity is. He is the King of Kings. He is the Lord of Lords. He is the architect of creation. If he wanted to, he can set off any one of the trillions of atoms around us, and it would be billions of nuclear explosions within this tiny little space. He can do that. That's how awesome and magnificent he is. And there are times where you're hit with that, and then there are times where you're hit with, man, God, you dope, bro. Like there's those. And I think it's knowing, first of all, your relationship with him, and then two, it's knowing when to respond to him in that way. Where, like, what is the context that you're in? If you're everyday life and you're praying and, oh yeah, I love me some God. Man, God, you on your way to work, man, God, you dope. Okay, that's one context. But then when he's in worship using you to do something, or he's showing you an aspect of who he is, I don't know, it's almost like, and I'm talking a lot, but it's almost like it's a automatic response. The reverence is automatic. Like that level of like you don't, nobody gets unless you just don't know, nobody gets in the presence of God to that degree, and it's casual. Like and it's just, oh, whatever, that's God. Like, no, because when he's manifested like that, it's like every knee shall bow and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord to the glory of God the Father. Like it's automatic. You just have to know the context. Does that make sense?
That's great. I looked up a few different things real quick just to see what are some juxtaposition type moments where the disciples treated Jesus with that brotherly kind of relationship and affection, and then juxtaposed with the same disciple seeing him like in this awe kind of moment in this revelation. And here's some of the stuff that kind of came up. So we have John leaning on Jesus' chest and falling at his feet in Revelation. So like you have John 13:23, where it's this is more intimacy. One of his disciples whom Jesus loved, this is John, was reclining at table close to the side of Jesus, right? So like just hanging out, like you're
Yeah.
talking about, like just hanging out with him like a brother. And he's not afraid to rest against Jesus, right? Like he's literally like laying his head on him. He's leaning on him, on his chest. Like how cool of a visual is that for one, you know? But then later you see in Revelation 1 when all of a sudden his revelation starts in exile and he sees Jesus. And when he sees him in Revelation 1:17, it says, I fell at his feet as though dead. Like this
Yeah.
is the one who's leaning on his chest and then collapses before his glory. Like that's cool to see. And I think it's like another one I pulled up here was Peter eating breakfast with Jesus and then falling down before him. So you see Luke 5:8. When Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, "Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord." That's after his miraculous catch of the fish that had happened. And
Yeah.
so, but before that, you see, he's eating with him, right? So Peter is some of the most human interactions that we see with Jesus. Like, he's
Yeah.
fishing with him, he's joking with him, and he's arguing with him. After that miraculous moment, that's when he's just like, he falls down on his knees. And he's like, depart from me, for I'm a sinful man, O Lord.
Yeah.
Like, contrast. Jesus is close enough to sit in Peter's boat, but then Peter realizes who he's standing before, and it's just so holy that and set apart from him that he just instantly gets triggered on it with that awe and reverence. And so I don't know, like I think what you're talking about. Well, I guess hold on. The biggest one to me, and it's not mentioned here. I don't know why. Transfiguration.
Yeah.
He brings them up, and they're with him. They're just walking with him, hanging out with him, and then they get to that top of the mountain, and all of a sudden he just bam transforms, and they see him in his actual glory, and they just fall down. And there's a theme here that you see. There's a theme that these people who are hanging out with him, they're just rubbing shoulders with him, they're telling jokes, they're sitting in the boat with him. All of a sudden, in an instant, they fall down. They just fall down. They can't help it because they realize the magnitude of what's in front of them. And they see that awe and they can't help but feel it. And so I think that exactly what you're saying, it rings so true with even the interactions. And I think it's so cool of why Jesus decided to walk among us so that we could actually see that, hey, this isn't just all about the Holy of Holies in the temple. God wants to be close to us. He wants to walk with us, and he wants to show us that we can be his friend as much as we are his creation. And we see
Can I
that in
mention?
Genesis. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just about to say that Genesis 2:3, when he was walking with Adam in the cool of the garden. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't it wasn't this, oh God, you
Yeah.
made me, but it was like, yo, I'm just coming down to see what Adam's doing today. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Hmm.
context. It's both. Like, and you have to know which one to do.
Yeah.
and
Well,
I and I
the same example with Adam and Eve once they sin, right? And so when they're
yeah.
eating from him, and he's just talking, hey guys, where are you at? Where are you at? And they can't come out. They're so terrified of what's going to happen. They know who he is, and they know what his wisdom is and his authority, and they fear the Lord. And it goes back to Ecclesiastes, where he's like, hey, just shut up, fear him, fear the,
Yeah.
and not in this fear of, and we've talked about this before on this podcast, but fear isn't just fright. In fact, the most plain way to read that in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament, is about just this magnitude of respect. He is the highest in my life, and he is above all things. That's what fear is. And so, yeah, stop talking, stop wasting so much time. Fear the Lord, respect him, put him at your highest. Listen. If you don't listen, you're going to be a fool. If you just fill up the conversation with you talking all the time, you're going to be like Peter, right? Like you're just going to talk, and you're going to talk yourself into a box because the Lord is telling you, hey, you're going to betray me, and you're going to be like, I'll never do that, and I'm just not going to shut up. And then when the time comes, I wasn't listening and saying, why, and like asking a question and just letting him talk.
Oh,
Maybe there was
wow.
a reason for it, or maybe he could have advised himself. I don't know, but Peter didn't really ask him that question. He
Mm,
just immediately, no, I'm not going to do that. He just didn't shut up. I don't know. Like
mm.
there's a
I,
really cool
it,
juxtaposition there.
yeah, I like that. The why that wow, because if he would have asked why, uh, sidebar, if he would have asked why, he may not have done it.
Now we're getting into
You
all
get,
the timeline stuff that's awesome to geek out about. But yeah,
bro, like that's if he would have. Hold on, Lord, why did you say that? Now you're opening the door. Now you're opening the door for him to talk back, so
yes.
he can give you instruction on what not to do, so that that situation doesn't happen again. It's like you said, okay, hey, shut up, don't just
Hmm.
run your mouth. That's wow. Wow,
Isn't that cool?
that is cool. Yeah, that's dope.
You just go back to anything in the Old Testament, any place, and you'll see people who talk to the Lord and run their mouth and end up looking like a fool. And I say talk to the Lord because capital Lord, or the angel of the Lord would be another example. I was reading
Mm,
him again and just reading. Here's something, just put a picture on this. I love this. I don't know why I never made this connection so distinctly before, and I knew it was a thing, but it locked in for me like crazy the other day when I was reading it again. I don't know why I always thought God was talking to Abraham, um, not in person when he was talking to him on the mountain overseeing Sodom and Gomorrah,
mm,
and they were debating. Well, not debating. Abraham just kept asking for the next thing, next thing, next thing, and God gave it to him every time. But when he keeps asking for, well, if there's 40 people, if there's 30, God, I'm sorry, just one more. If there's like 20, how about 10? Like he just keeps going down. And I just always like, even though I knew what the context was, I always had it in my brain as Abraham's on there, and God is just speaking to him, kind of like he did before when he made the covenant about the stars and all that stuff. When he walked in his shadow, kind of walked between the corpses and stuff to make the promise and all that. So like that's kind of what I was thinking of, but it wasn't. This was right after Sarah got her name. This is right after they had dinner together. And all three of these angels, the angel of the Lord and the other two angels, are talking to Abraham. And the angel of the Lord says, hey, you two go. I'm going to stay here with this guy. And so he just stays there with Abraham. The other two angels
oh,
go
wow.
to Sodom and Gomorrah. He's physically there with them, like physically there with him. And he's speaking to God just one on one. They just ate, they just broke bread together, and they're hanging out. And now God's saying, hey, the cry of this land is crazy, and I have to destroy it. But my people are going to investigate. And that's when Abraham starts talking to him and asking for all of the allowances. And he gives
Yeah.
every one, until Abraham finally shuts up. He finally gives up. And so it's moments like that where I wonder if why Abraham wouldn't just say, or wouldn't ask more questions about it. Because the
Yeah.
angel of the Lord said, why? Because the eye of the land, the great, and they're investigating it. But I just wonder what would happen if Abraham just started asking questions about understanding God's process and his thinking, and what that would have done for us as readers. But no, he has to do the human thing and try to defend these people and make it so that God won't kill them all, which is a very
Mm,
human thing to do. And it's that intercessor that's going to come later on through Moses and through David and through all sorts of people, all the way up until Jesus becomes the ultimate intercessor. But it's that theme of the Bible that Abraham is playing out right here and showing how imperfect the intercessor role was until Jesus came around later to fulfill it. And
Mm.
it's just so cool to see that thread. And to me, again, that visual of they just broke bread physically together. Now they're up there. Jesus, because I believe the angel of the Lord is Jesus. And we could talk about that in another live stream, but I believe that was. And
Yeah.
Jesus sent the other two angels down. Hey, go check out the village. I'm chilling with this guy. We're going to talk because I know what's about to happen here. I know Abraham's heart, and we're just going to have a discussion about it. Um, and they just rap like that. Like I think it's so cool, that visual understanding of it, and that helps us understand later on with Jesus and his disciples. It's the same dynamic, breaking
Mm.
together, talking about stuff. Jesus is he's like the exact same as this angel of the Lord, his demeanor and how he's acting. People say God of the Old Testament and Jesus are so different from each other. It's like Jesus was like, he's the same dude, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's so cool. I don't know. I'm going to stop for a second. You got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so there's this passage in First Kings, and it blew my mind. And I don't know if you remember when Elijah was running from Jezebel,
Mm.
and he was scared for his life. And I've read that passage. It was one of the passages I stood on when God told me to quit my job and go to ministry school. And so I was reading through it, and I read it through it recently, like a few months ago. And what I noticed was that, Elijah's like, "Oh, Lord, I'm afraid for my life." The angel of the Lord sat with him for 40 days, didn't give him any instruction for 40 days, fed this dude, took care of this dude. And then he said, "Elijah, you got to da 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 da. It's time to go." So then Elijah goes, and then he's in this cavern, and that's when the Lord comes in the wind and the earthquake and the fire, and then he comes in a still small voice. And then he asks him a question, and then Elijah answers. And then God asks him the same question, but he tells Elijah, "Hey, go in the cave, cover your face." And then it says, then the voice of the Lord. So first it said the word of the Lord, and then it said the voice of the Lord. And what I noticed was, holy crap, like God told him to cover his face because he showed up in person to
Mm.
talk to him, to comfort him. I was like, wait a minute. Like that was dope because he'll show up. And so what I think that, going back to that question, I think that God gives allotments for us as people to approach him sincerely.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think. It's different if you know better. Like it's like if you just show up in mom and dad's room, boom, mom and dad, da da da. Hold up. What are you doing? This is
Mm.
You don't just show up in our room. You don't do that. You know what I'm saying? Like we can just talk. Like there's times I've sat on my parents' bed, and I sat on my parents' bed and was watching TV with my dad one time, or I was sitting on the bed and hanging out with mom one time in their bedroom. So that's not uncommon, but at the same time, it's I still don't just show up in my parents' room. Like we don't do that. And so but at the same time, if you didn't know any better, like if my sister's 12 years younger than me, if my sister just at when she was a baby, if she just mom and dad, 5-year-old walk in, boom, mom and dad, they would give an allotment for that because she's 5, she's approaching me sincerely. So yeah, come on in. Or even if now, I'm 34, and I am, if I'm like chacked up, like just I need to talk to my mom and dad, and I walk in, and I just walk in, no knock, no nothing. Mom, dad, I'm da 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 da. And they wouldn't be like, "How dare you come in my room?" No, they would sit and talk to me. And so, in the same way, I just think that God wants you to approach Him with sincerity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, the reverence, but I like it's like you said earlier, it's both. It's not one or the other. And I think He makes allotments for us being people. It would behoove us to not just run our mouths. But I think He makes allotments for us being people and us being His children. Because He knows what we need when we're coming. He already knows. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Oh man, it's so good. I love that you brought up First Kings 19. Um, yeah, and I mean it's just crazy to say we're getting low on time, um, but so we'll have to talk about that in another stream as well. If you're down for it, one of the nights that you're off, I might just have to go on it without you though because it's just so good. But First
No,
Corinthians,
I got you.
there's so many gems in there. But here's the crazy thing about it. So like when Elijah's tired, man. Like here's the crazy part. He just like the chapters before does the showdown, right? So like the showdown between gods, and he's mocking the priests, and he kills all of them, and like he destroys everything, right? I mean, this dude is a baller for the Lord.
Yeah.
He is the man. And then he gets done. The king is yielding and all of that, but then his wife comes after him. His wife, and he freaks out, and he takes off and runs. And finally, where does he make himself back to? It wasn't just a mountain.
It wasn't it a tree? He found himself under a tree.
It was Mount Sinai.
Holy crap.
Mount Sinai. So what's Mount Sinai? This is a tree is a good example of this. The burning bush, right?
Mm.
God shows up in trees for some reason a lot of times. I mean, all the way to Jesus, right? Dying on a tree. Think about it.
Yeah,
The tree of
that's
life
wild.
starts there, the burning bush, right? We see, yeah, I mean, it's just like all over. But and usually it's under a tree. I mean, he sprouted a tree for Jonah. He sprouted a tree for Hagar in the desert, and he showed up there with her. I mean, it's just there's a lot there too. So trees is a whole other theme in the Bible too. But but yes, he finds himself at Mount Sinai in a cave,
Mm.
and it says that an angel's giving him food, saying, "Hey, get up, eat, drink," and so he does that. And then it says the angel of the Lord came. So now we got God in the mix, coming in that form, and saying, "Hey, get up, you need to eat again." And so he fed him for 40 days, like you were saying. And then what do we hear from him? We hear, "Man, I am wiped out. I'm the last one. Everybody's tearing down your altars. Everybody's like mocking you. Like it's over. I'm the last one." And he's done. He's throwing in the towel. And so what do you see God do? Keep in mind, he's on Mount Sinai, 10 commandments, fire, they're pillars of fire, pillars of cloud. Like this is that place. This is God's space before it became the temple. And so he's here with him on this high mountain. And when he's here in this holy place, God starts tearing the place apart with noise, earthquakes, wind, all this crazy noise. It says, but God wasn't in any of that.
Mm.
And what it's really saying, if you go back to the Hebrew on it, is it's saying Elijah couldn't hear God. He couldn't hear him in the wind. He couldn't hear him in the earthquake. Think of when somebody's screaming at you and you can't hear them. And so finally you hear God do something else. He comes in a whisper. Elijah, what's wrong? Why are you here? And Elijah repeats the exact same thing he said before. And that's when God says, okay, I've got your replacement. And that's when he goes and finds Elisha. And he says, and by the way, you're not the only one. I've saved 7,000.
That's wild.
It is, isn't it? And so you even hear like this tired, defeated moment from this guy. Jesus or the angel of the Lord is there with him, feeding him, taking care of him, his daily bread. He's got gives him covering and food, which is all that he says in the New Testament that we need to be content with. Like that's our
Mm.
content, daily bread, and it's in our covering. And
That's
so he
wild.
provides that for him. And he says, "Man, this guy's tired." And so he speaks to him in this loud way. Elijah can't hear it anymore. And so he finally just breaks through and whispers to him, "What's wrong, Elijah? Why are you here?" And Elijah tells him once again, basically, "I'm done. I'm done. I'm the last one. Everybody's doing all these things. I can't do it anymore." So he says, "Okay, I hear you. I've got your guy. He's right over there. His name's Elisha, and he's going to be the guy." And then he takes him away after he trains
Can
Elisha.
I tag something real quick onto that?
Yeah, yeah.
In every example we talked about, had each one of these individuals took the time to listen to God. Because, like you said, he told Elijah, "You're not the last one. I saved 7,000."
Mm-hmm.
After Elijah said what he said twice, he told him, he encouraged him, "Hey, it's not what it looks like." And it's like, even going back to Peter, "Yo, you'll deny me." No, I'm not gonna. Didn't ask why.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Abraham. "Oh God, if you can save 20, can you save 10, God, please?" Like, hey, I it's the thing that came up in my head just now was wait.
Mm-hmm.
Wait for the answer. Wait for the answer. It's crazy how when you're deep in like true, like the physical demonstration of worship, you're on your face. Can't say
Yeah,
much when you're on your face. you can't you
that's
can't
right.
talk when you can't sometimes you can't even sing when you're on your face. You're just on your face. And when you're on your face, he can talk to you. You're not running your mouth. You're the reverence and respect. You stop talking because, okay, he's showing himself. And now, since you're not talking and you're on your face, now I can talk to you. So just wait
Yep.
for the answer. Just wait for
Yep.
the answer. And yeah, like that's, bro, like that's wild. Just wait
Isn't it?
for the answer.
It's so cool. And as I was talking about earlier today, and I was having that moment of clarity myself. What I had to do was because I was reading through the Bible, I was about to get to work and do a bunch of stuff with the contract that I'm doing, and there was a lot to do. There's just a ton to do with that, and so I'm just going through I usually write, I journal a prayer in the morning because it just helps me kind of brain dump a little bit and
Yeah.
just start praying. Um, and then I read a passage of scripture, and today it was that one. Was not expecting it at all, Ecclesiastes 5, and it just hit me like a sledgehammer. And so I stopped. I was like, man, I used to do this all the time. I used to just go for a walk and just listen. Like that's it. 95% was listening, 5% was talking. And so it's like, okay, I'm going to do that. And I was shocked and scared at how little I could hear.
Mm.
This is where your First Kings reference really caught me, and I was like, "Whoa, I'm not ready to stop yet." Like, why am I not hearing you the way that I used to hear you? It's like, man, okay,
Yeah.
this tells me one thing: I need to stop a whole lot more than I've been stopping, and I need to listen a whole lot more than I've been coming up, writing down my prayers, just doing the thing, talking, 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 talking. And don't get me wrong, again, Hebrews, he loves that. And Jesus is a good example of it. Angel of the Lord, God keeps asking questions too. God was asking Elijah, hey, what's wrong? Why are you here? So he's asking us questions. We should talk to him. But we should probably try to listen more than we talk even. And that's the blessing of what we get as we approach God. The blessing is we actually can listen to God, where before nobody else could, except for somebody like a prophet. Like nobody else got to hear from him. Everybody else had to hear through. We get to actually go to the throne and say, God, what does your wisdom look like today? What do you want me to do? And hear directly from him. And so I think that there's this beauty that we have in the moment that we're in, where we should show up in reverence. We should show up ready to listen more than talk. But the coolest part about it is we're invited to be who we are and to not hold back, because Jesus knows who we are and he's told us to come boldly. And so I just say that to hopefully, if there's anybody there as we kind of wrap this up, who is struggling with, man, I don't know how to approach God. I don't know how to do that. The point isn't that there's a right way and a wrong way that you have to be super careful of. Jesus fixed that, and he set us free from that expectation.
Yeah.
But there is the moment of saying, I either will or I won't. And when I come, I need to come with the expectation that God's there. I'm in a throne room. I'm not by myself somewhere. I'm coming with God. And my expectation should be, he probably wants to talk to me, which is astounding. You go to any other throne room and that king's saying, all right, what do you want from me? But here it's like, he wants you to talk to him. And then he wants to talk back and give you wisdom. And so listen, not because he's going to get irritated. Listen because he's wise and he wants to share wisdom with you. And so I would just encourage anybody who's listening to this, if you haven't done that before, experienced that before, try praying this week. Take a walk, sit on your couch, whatever you got to do, and just try shutting up for a little bit and seeing what happens when your mind just lets go and allows God to just speak to you. And you're probably going to think it's your own voice for a bit, and it might be. But do that over and over and over and over again, and you're going to start being able to tell what's your voice and what's his voice. And that's a beautiful thing when you start distinguishing that. And I just told you today, I had a hard time hearing him today. So you're not alone in that if you guys are experiencing that problem. I know that's a problem. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to take my own medicine cure right now and every day for a time listening to him, because I want to distinguish that voice more clearly again. And I know I got to get there again, and it's beautiful. So that's my encouragement to anybody who's listening to this as we kind of wrap things up. Ed, do you have anything to encourage anybody with as well as we wrap it up?
I do. It's okay to wait. I know for me, I have a hard time. I'm always trying to go to the next thing. But there's a reason why God has you where you're at. There's a reason why he's told you just this. And there's a reason why you're in the situation you're in, especially if you're in that situation because God led you to that particular place to be in that situation. So just enjoy the ride and don't keep going into prayer with, oh no, God, I'm freaking out. But like Casey said, sit and wait for the answer, because as quiet as it's kept, he already has the answer. and he wants to give it to you freely. You ain't got to work hard for it. Just ask and he will freely give. So, yeah, practice waiting.
Love it. Guys, you don't have to do this perfectly. It doesn't have to be perfectly worded when you come and talk to him. It just needs to be honest. It needs to be from your heart. Now, if something shifts for any of you guys this week, please let us know in the comments, or if you're in the Discord, please throw it in there. Throw it in the stories. We want to hear from you guys. Drop it in there. Send us a message. However you want to reach. We're praying for your attention and to the Lord, and we are paying attention to the comments that you put in. And we'd love to see the progress that we're all making. Pray for mine. I'm going to be praying for yours. And let's have a great week together serving him.